All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 7:03 on Monday, March 18th, 2024, and I will call to order the Board of School Directors Legislative Meeting for the month of March. And Ms. Evans, if you could call the roll, please.
Ms. Jenna Evans.
Present.
Ms. Ionetti.
Present.
Mr. Held.
Present.
Ms. Redding.
Present.
Ms. Sherpier.
Present.
Dr. Thomas.
Present.
Mr. Sirota.
He is excused this evening.
Mr. Warschauer.
Present.
Mr. Wallach.
Present. Thank you, Ms. Evans. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome, everyone. To those in attendance, anyone watching online, thank you for joining us for this meeting tonight in March. We all had a taste of spring, I guess, this weekend. A little colder now, but as we turn to that time of year, many things happen in our schools. I'm sure we're going to hear about some of those from our two reports and presentations tonight. So with that, we'll get right into it. And first up is our student government report, and Anthony is here, and I believe Anthony is going to introduce us to somebody else as well tonight. So Anthony, thank you as always.
Thank you. So this month of March at Upper Dublin has been soaring by quickly. And when I mean quickly, it's been very quick this month. With only a week away from spring break, students are still working very hard to get to the finish line, and there's still a lot of events happening at the high school. So to start the month off, the theater department's much anticipated musical, Footloose, was a tremendous success. With 4 packed shows, the audience was amazed by the hard work and dedication of the cast and crew. They truly gave an outstanding performance, and we couldn't be more proud of the amazing show that they put on for us. It was surely a night to remember and could not be possible without the effort of all the students involved and Miss G. On the other hand, the junior and senior classes have been selling prom tickets during school and preparing for these upcoming events. We cannot wait for the excitement and fun that these events will bring. The junior prom will take place on April 6th, and senior prom will take place on May 11th. Last Friday, the high school held its 10th annual mini-thon event, where students raised money to give to families and children who are fighting with pediatric cancer. This year's theme was Candyland, and the night was filled with dancing, a 3v3 basketball tournament, food and drinks, and so much more. At the end of the night, it was revealed that students raised over $77,000. We thank the board members, Mrs. McNamara and Ms. Saxon, for all the hard work that they brought for bringing an amazing night for all of us and all for a good cause. In other good news, the Student Government Association held its annual election for next year's steering committee. We are thrilled to see new and returning faces in our student leadership for this upcoming school year. We wish them all the best of luck, and I know that the new steering committee will accomplish great things. Lastly, some of our Cardinals are getting ready to pack their bags and travel to Britain as part of the British Exchange Program. Our Cardinals welcome students from Britain in the fall and will now be traveling to Britain on Thursday. We wish our Cardinals a safe trip and a great time during their time at Britain. As I mentioned before, the student government held its annual elections, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Izzy Fishman, who will be serving as the underclassmen rep for next year's steering committee.
Hi, I'm Izzy Fishman, and I'm going to be the next school board representative from the SGA. I'm a current sophomore, and I am highly involved in the arts outside of school. I'm a member of the marching band, indoor color guard, and musicals. I also have 2 jobs where I work at Habad Gardens School as a preschool aftercare teacher and Timney Knox as a tax return preparer. I'm also involved in the SGA, as you can see, where I was the underclassmen representative for this year. That's just a little bit about me, and I can't wait to work together. Thank you.
Anthony and Izzy, thank you so much. So much going on. First of all, just a big shout out to Minithon. I mean, it's just amazing. The event, the work, the money raised, that's just tremendous. Thanks to everybody that participates on that, from the students all the way up to faculty and advisors. Everything going on, it's amazing stuff. I had an opportunity to see Footloose. I agree. It was out of sight, as usual. Anthony, I don't know when your last time with us is. Is this it, or do we get you some more? One more? Okay. We're going to hang on as long as we can, okay? And Izzy, welcome. We look forward to hearing from you and getting to know you. And as I'm sure Anthony told you, we've started a new tradition recently that our SGA rep is up here at the table with us. So we welcome you, and we want you to get involved and keep us apprised of everything going on and be involved as much as you want to be with us, okay? Awesome. Well, welcome, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward. With that, we'll move to our next report, and Dr. Smith.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to you, Izzy, as well. Anthony, I think we need to go over our notes before these meetings. I'm not going to say anything about Minithon because you did an amazing job. Just a couple of things here for the district. We are starting our comprehensive planning process, which is something that districts need to do every 3 years. We'll be forming a steering committee and then looking at our mission, vision, and goals, and that will occur from about now through the end of this calendar year, with presentation to the board in early 2025 and then sent to PDE for approval. I'm also excited to announce that on March 11th, Mr. Leckman received notice that Sandy Run Middle School project was LEED Gold certified, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and it's a symbol of sustainability. It is green and sustainable benefits through air quality. This is why Sandy Run was chosen. Green and sustainable benefits through air quality optimization and efficiency of water and energy usage and solar power, which is estimated to generate approximately 20% of our electricity usage. And for cost savings, alternative and clean energy grant of around almost $4 million in funding that we received towards the project, and there'll be ongoing savings estimated at around $35,000 per year for the solar panels, which we're excited to announce are scheduled to be activated on March 27th. This was a 6-year process from the time of the application to build Sandy Run, and it will greatly benefit the community for years to come. So we're excited to announce that that has been achieved. And in addition to the other things that Anthony mentioned, Music in Our Schools vocal concert was this past week with a 90s theme. We were moving and grooving. It was a great night, and the instrumental concert for Music in Our Schools is tomorrow evening. And I wish everybody a wonderful spring break. There is no school for students from March 25th to April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. We're going to keep moving on our agenda. Next up is our first opportunity for public participation. This is for action and agenda items only on our agenda this evening. If anyone wishes to address the board, I'll say we revised our board operating guideline ever so slightly in language, so you may hear a slightly different introduction from me and others running meetings. But if speakers would come up to the microphone, state their name and city of residence, or affirm that they're a resident or taxpayer of the school district before addressing the board, we would greatly appreciate it. And once you do that, Ms. Evans will time your 4 minutes. Thank you.
Jenny Vitella Ambler. I affirm that I have lived here for 54 years. I just want to welcome Izzy. Dance Marathon at Penn State was something I was very involved with, and it's so awesome to see it come so many years later and be so successful. So that's really awesome. I love hearing that. Now business stuff. The contract for the Bus Depot traffic study has been changed, and there's an additional $3,000 charge because of things we discussed in the Finance Committee. I would just curious about what changed, because I know we talked about we didn't know when, or like the weather, or how many times they'd be coming, and there'd be crash data. And also, the other thing I'd be interested in learning, which I know it's a little late, is there's bus cut-through. It's a problem with some of those neighborhoods in and around school, obviously, but adding that bus depot there will also increase, I'm sure, cut-through, because they don't want to sit at that light at Fort Washington and Highland, so they cut through from Stevens to Thomas. I've witnessed it, and I know the people that live there witness it, and I know they cut through other neighborhoods like we call it Birdland. I'm sorry if that's offensive to people now, but that's what we called it from always. That there's cut through from Sandy Run too, as opposed to going Limekiln to Susquehanna. So that might be of interest to look into the cut through or what we can do to avoid that now that we'll have 50 buses going in and out of there. And also, is this part of the $1 million that you approved through ICS, or is this on top of that? I know I asked that before. One thing that does concern me on page 5, the traffic counts, it says it might happen during summer school break or during a service day or minor holiday or inclement weather, and it might not reflect the true conditions. So I guess that we'd have to pay more money if that was the case. So I'd be curious about why that would be the case, because it doesn't make any sense to spend $30-some thousand on a traffic study that might not be during when the buses are actually going there. Okay, thanks.
I do not see anyone else approaching the microphone, so I will close this opportunity for public participation. Dr. Smith, do you have any comments in response?
I would just say that when we get to the traffic study item, I think Mr. Leckman will be answering those questions.
Yeah, okay. We'll leave that for Ms. Evans and Mr. Leckman when we get there. Excellent. Okay, so with that, we will move on to the minutes in our agenda. We have our minutes from our February 26th, 2024 legislative meeting. They've been distributed to the board. Board's had an opportunity to review them, and I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Ms. Evans, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Helt, thank you so much. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. We'll now move into our recommendations part of our agenda, and first up is our Education Committee recommendations, and Ms. Sherpier.
All right, thank you. There are 3 items. One is the calendar revision, and then conferences and student activities. I think I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3 items, but I would like to clarify that the calendar revision is really including the change. The only change is the date of graduation.
Correct. We appreciate that clarification, but the motion is to approve all 3 items. Do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Mr. Warschauer, thank you so much. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Excellent. Next, we're going to move on to our Finance Committee recommendations, and Ms. Evans, Ms. Jen Evans, that is, in Mr. Sirota's absence, if I could ask you to handle this.
Sure thing. Items A through H were discussed during the Finance Committee last Wednesday. I am going to break these into chunks, though, because we do have some updates on some of those items, including the traffic study item that was referenced earlier. So the first motion I'm going to make is for items B, C, D, E, G, and H. There was a question during the Finance Committee about item H, and Mr. Leckman, I think we can confirm that the agreement is correct. The discrepancy between the years for the township versus school taxes was because of the different cutoffs for each of those, correct?
Correct, yeah. Essentially, when the timing of the settlement stipulation, as is in March, the township bills have already been sent out for the new year. That's why there's 2 years of reimbursement for the township and community college. As opposed to the district, we only have 1 bill that needs to be refunded.
So again, the items that were discussed and we don't have updates to are all of the items except for A, F, and I. So I'm making a motion for, again, B, C, D, E, G, and H at this time.
Excellent, appreciate it. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Redding, thank you so much. Questions or comments? Mr. Leckman, thank you for that clarification. I think I was the one that read that wrong or raised that question, so appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Ms. Evans, back to you for more.
All right, so let's circle back then to item A, which again is the traffic study. And Mr. Leckman, I'll turn it over to you for some updates on that item.
Certainly, thank you. So as we discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, there were a number of outstanding questions and recommendations from the committee. So I'll start with the recommendation of the committee. The first one was to make 2 changes to the agreement. One of those changes was to add a scenario, the access scenario, including the potential to utilize the access road connection that goes to Lockhouse passed on the 309 side of the township building, so that was added as an access scenario. And there was also a request to add the crash data to the proposal. So the cost impact, the proposal is now $36,200, which is an increase of $3,950. So those were adds to the proposal. 2 of the larger questions that were asked one was about the impact of the traffic study as a result of the township building being under construction. So again, I will say out loud, I am not an expert in traffic studies. So I went back to TPD to explain the scenario and ask them for feedback about how they, as the expert in this area, if that would impact the study in any way, that would have a meaningful impact to its outcome. And what they said was they deal with uncertainties all of the time in traffic studies. So they confirmed that once the study's underway, they would absolutely reach out to the township and look for one of 2 things. One would be to see if they have a traffic study that they had to do as part of their project, and they could reference that. And if not, then they would also speak to someone at the township who has direct knowledge of the traffic flow in and out of the building. So the building, while it hasn't been in operation since 2021, it certainly existed before then. So there is data. There's also data in the 2018 study that is referenced in there that they would be able to access as well. So while they won't be able to monitor that traffic per se, they would absolutely have access to data that would be utilized as part of this study. They do also note that the work is part of their standard methodology and covered under the base future no builds conditions assumption that's in task 3.2 within their proposal. As far as the timeline goes, they did confirm that if this is approved this evening, and we provide a signed copy back to them tomorrow, they would start doing traffic counts the first week of April. Obviously not April 1st, because that is not a day that students are in session, but they would start the work that day. After they're done with the traffic count portion of that study, it would take them approximately 6 weeks to prepare their draft study for our review. And ICS requested that it be done by mid-May, just to keep us on timeline with our process, because again, this is a requirement as part of the land development with the township. Just to answer 2 more questions I heard tonight. So the cost part of the proposal is not part of ICS's contract. So this was something specifically defined in the contract with ICS that the traffic study was our requirement. It is, however, part of the overall budget for that ICS presented to us for the project. So again, not part of their $1 million contract we have, but part of the $10.2 million overall cost of the entire project. And I think that those are the 2 things I wanted to mention there. So that's my update, and certainly happy to answer any further questions.
Mr. Leckman, thank you so much for all that explanation. It was very helpful. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Redding.
Is there any flexibility when they could start? Can they start on April 8th, which I think would be a better time, just because it's not right after spring break, and we might see a better start to the traffic study. Is there any flexibility in that start date?
I'm sure they can start whenever we ask them to. I think the concern there is it's 6 weeks to get their study done. So I'm assuming they would be able to figure out when the best time is. But I mean, if we decide that it's best to start on April 8th, I don't think there'd be any concerns other than it would delay us a week to get to a final report.
Ms. Sherpier.
Yeah, can you just clarify, other than it being a requirement, what do we really want to learn from this study?
I don't know that I have a good answer to that. I mean, I think we want to, obviously, the purpose of a traffic study is to learn how much traffic is in and out of a specific area. It also, they would be required to make recommendations at the end if there's changes. We need to know if anything gets into a PennDOT roadway or access area that would require us to make changes to. So, I mean, I think there's lots of things that we want to learn, but that's part of why the traffic study is a requirement as part of land development.
Ms. Evans?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it's, for me anyway, it's not just that it's a requirement, we do want to, I think, legitimately see what the impact is going to be on the, neighborhoods around there. I mean, it was a community concern, so I think for me, it serves a dual purpose, which will either alleviate those concerns or, cause us to rethink what we're doing. So for me, that was part of the purpose anyway. There was also the question about, and there is language in there that talks about if it's necessary to conduct it at sort of these off times. The way I read that was, I don't know why it would be necessary, so I kind of read that would only be if there was some force majeure or something, some reason why they absolutely couldn't do it during normal times. And given the timeline you just laid out, it sounds like that won't be a problem, so.
I mean, just to echo what Ms. Evans said, I mean, to me, if you look at like what the proposed analyses are in task 5 of the traffic study, it's to determine traffic impact, determine if there are any necessary roadway improvements, and then prepare schematics and reports. So I think to all those types of points, to me, that's what's germane, in addition to anything that might be legally or township required in order to come out of it. So I agree with that completely. Other questions or comments from the board? I guess on the start date, would it be possible, Mr. Leckman, for you to discuss with TPD and ICS as to their prime sort of start period vis-a-vis the end date and things like that? And I guess, would the board be comfortable in the context of approving, giving the administration that flexibility to ascertain a start date based on the recommendations of our professionals? Does that make sense to you, Mr. Leckman? Dr. Smith, you good with that? Board, I throw that out there. Is that everybody? Ms. Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I think all we're just trying to do is balance trying to get it done on that timeline with trying to make sure it's not, at an inopportune time that's not going to give us a realistic sense of what the traffic's like. So yeah, I think with those two balancing considerations in mind, I'd be comfortable with that personally.
Ms. Redding, does that satisfy your comment for the evening?
I just wouldn't want it to start on the 1st, so I would want to know what the timeline is, and then see if we can either start at the following week or later in that week once we know families are back and the traffic pattern's back to normal.
We confirmed it will not start on the 1st. So it absolutely will not start on the 1st. We've defined that, yeah. But we can wait till later that week and go into the early next week just to be certain.
Excellent. Other questions or comments? Okay. With that, all in favor, please?
Oh, we need a motion.
Oh, did we not do a motion?
Yeah, so
My bad.
this is one of the ones that I reserved.
Sorry, we went right into discussion.
I'll make a motion. How about that? I'll make a motion to approve item 6A.
Excellent. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Redding, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we vote? Excellent. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Ms. Evans, I think you got a couple more.
I do. Another item that there was some discussion on during the Finance Committee, and I think we have an update here, is item F, which I will turn over to Dr. Smith.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Evans. This is the request for the board to allow us to enter into an agreement with a communications consultant prior to the April legislative meeting. We are slated to do interviews later this week. We have further identified the scope of work to include social media and website management, newsletters, crisis communication, consultation on projects, and the completion of a communications audit. And then we have also flushed out a little bit in terms of what that audit would include, such things as looking at our policies and communications, how effective are we being, both internal and external, assessing marketing and branding, and again, crisis communications could include surveying our stakeholders for their preferences and perceptions. And then our expectation would be there would be a comprehensive report provided at the end of the audit that identifies our strengths, weaknesses, and any communication gaps, as well as recommended steps that they may have for us. That answer everything?
I think the only other thing is to note, in the recommended action, it is at a cost not to exceed, so that was
Yes,
something else
not
we
to
talked
exceed.
about. Yep.
Okay, before we get to comments this time, Ms. Evans, perhaps we'll take a motion first. I'll do it in the right order this time.
Totally fine. I will make a motion to approve item 6F.
And do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Held, thank you so much. Questions or comments on the motion or the update that Dr. Smith provided? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Ms. Evans, ninth batter, last one up.
I know. So we had a lot of follow-up items, I'm sorry. This one's easy. So item 6I is an item that does not come up in the Finance Committee, is always presented for the first time here in Legislative, so that's why I reserved that one separately. So I will make a motion to approve this. It's a standard item. And then, Mr. Leckman, obviously, if you have any comments to add.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Held, thank you so much. Questions or comments about the payments motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Okay, we will move on next to our Personnel Committee recommendations, and Ms. Redding.
We have 2 for personnel, and I'd like to motion for A and B.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Iannitti, thank you so much. Questions or comments on the personnel motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, we have one pupil services recommendation. We have an educational agreement. I will make a motion to approve that educational agreement. If there's a second for that motion.
Second.
Ms. Sherpier, thank you so much. Questions or comments from the board? I guess first, Dr. Smith, anything you need to tell the board in advance of deliberating on this motion?
No.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all. Next, we're to the Policy Committee recommendations. Ms. Iannitti.
Okay, sorry. So these, we have second readings and first readings. All were discussed at length in the policy meetings. First readings will be back for another reading. The second readings will hopefully go through tonight. So I'd like to make a motion to approve A and B.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Mr. Warshauer, thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. We have one item of other business this evening. I think I will take it since Mr. Sirota is not here this evening. What we have to do tonight is nominate one of our board members to the MCIU, the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And just by way of background, people may remember in December, we appointed Ms. Sherpier to fill out the remainder of Dr. Davis's term. And Dr. Davis's term will end June the 30th of 2024. So we now have to appoint a board member for a new 3-year term, which will run from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. And Ms. Sherpier has been gracious enough to tell me that she is willing and happy to continue in the role. And so I will make a motion to nominate Ms. Sherpier for that MCIU 3-year term position. And I would ask if there's a second to the motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Evans, thank you so much. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all, and thank you, Ms. Sherpier, for continuing your service for us with the MCIU. Next, we'll move on to our solicitor's report and our Sunshine Act announcements. Mr. Diazio.
Yes, thank you. The board met in executive session this evening prior to tonight's public meeting. There was a discussion on one confidential student item, and then there was a discussion on the Act 93 meet and discuss contract.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Next up is our second opportunity for public participation. This is for any topic. If anyone would like to address the board, please come up, tell us your name and city of residence, or affirm that you're a resident or taxpayer of the district, and Ms. Evans will time your 4 minutes.
Tina Vitella, still a taxpayer of Upper Dublin. I just wanted to say, so the implication, thank you for all the answers to the questions that you had and I had for that. I appreciate that for the traffic study. I just, one more clarification. The implication of not starting on the 1st would mean that they're going to come more than one day of the week, which is good. Just, can you let me know if that's true? And the only problem about the following week, that Friday, the kids would leave for Disney, the senior class. And that's a lot of drivers, and that's over 200 kids. So that would be a significant decrease, but I like your thinking about coming off of spring break. People might be coming into school on Tuesday or Wednesday if they took additional days. So I appreciate that consideration. But the end of the next week, we get into the senior class trip where a lot of drivers would not be there. And also, I just want to please encourage everyone about post-prom, which Anthony didn't bring up, even though I keep telling him to please bring it up. We would encourage everybody to help in any way they can, whether that's in person with, or with donations or support or volunteerism. The Upper Dublin High School PTO does this free event for the seniors at Upper Dublin High School. It's a great event. We brought it back to life after COVID, and it was hosted last year for the first time ever at Upper Dublin High School, and we're doing that again this year. It takes a lot of hours, and the kids, what's great already is that the kids know about it. Last year, the kids didn't know about it because they were in 8th grade. The last time the post-prom had happened. So this is a great event that happens at the high school immediately after the prom. You can bring your dates, your guest. You don't even have to go to the prom, and you can come. And there's lots of prizes, lots of food, lots of games, activities, and we're having hypnotists and everything else, and the prizes are great. So any help in donations or other would be fantastic. Thank you.
I do not see anyone else approaching the microphone, so I will close the second opportunity for public participation. I will note we did not receive any written comments before the meeting. I think in response to a couple other comments about the traffic study, I would put the sort of scheduling comments back into my at least characterization of the administration can discuss with our professionals and take those things into consideration. Board administration, is that a fair summation? Okay. And Mr. Leckman, Dr. Smith, we appreciate you doing that. I agree, post-prom was a great event last year. I'm still bleary-eyed from working the 2 to 5 shift or whatever I was at, but thank you for those comments as well. Any other comments from the board? I'm sorry. Ms. Sherpier.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that April 1st, that Monday, is a part of spring break, right? For students, whereas for staff, it's a PD. Is that correct?
It is a day off for students, April
Yeah.
1st. It is a professional learning day for our staff, yes.
Yes, I just wanted to make that clear because I think there's a little bit of confusion on that component. So, and yes, I mean, there's a ton of activities going on. Post-prom certainly always is a good one. So anybody who feels excited about seeing what it's like and contributing, by all means do. It's fun.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, we'll move on to our informational items. We have our enrollment report, as usual. We have our liaison committee reports. Does any of our liaisons have anything to add that's not in writing? I will just add a big thank you on behalf of the Ed Foundation. Saturday night was Winning Cards Casino Night. It was a new venue, an amazing event, and a lot of donations, raised a lot of money, both for the Ed Foundation, for the school district, and for township charities. So thank you to everyone who both helped put it together, made it happen, came, donated, hopefully had fun. So any other comments from anybody else on liaisons? Dr. Thomas.
Just wanted to highlight a few items from the Equity and Empowerment Liaison Report. The African American Black Student and Families has the Food Truck Festival coming up, and they have their meeting coming up. The LGBTQIA plus Equity Subcommittee has Chalk the Walk and the flag raising and Pride Celebration coming up. Speak has a great event coming up. Our two great events coming up, and then there's an amazing recap of the Lunar New Year Gala that took a little time to put together, that's provided by a student journalist. So I encourage everybody to check that out, along with a couple of links to some nice photo galleries of that event.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Dr. Thomas. Anybody else? Okay, we have our committee meeting approved minutes that were approved at the committee level, February 7th for Education and Policy and February 21st for Finance, so they're informational items. And last, we have our schedule for our upcoming meetings. Our next Education Committee meeting will be Wednesday, April the 3rd at 6 o'clock. Policy Committee, same day, 7 o'clock or immediately thereafter. Finance Committee will be on Wednesday, April the 17th at 6 o'clock. And our next legislative meeting is Monday, April the 22nd at 7 o'clock. And with that, thank you all. We are adjourned.